So hello everyone, my name is Betsy Brick and I'm the Development Director of Early Music Seattle, and I'm coming to you today from my apartment downtown. And I'm thrilled to have violinist Alana Youssefian joining us. She is going to be appearing in our Vivaldi Four Seasons concert next May with the Seattle Baroque Orchestra. So I just want to say hello to her and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this morning.
Of course. Well, it's afternoon here in New York, so I'm full
Yeah.
awake.
That's right. We're in different time zones right now.
Yes.
It's wonderful, and people will be watching this at all different times too. So we'll have everything covered.
I mean, nobody knows what time is anymore anyway, so it's totally fine.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So how are you weathering everything? So you're in New York, is that right?
Yes. So I'm home with my fiance. He's a lawyer, so he's also working from home, and that's been very interesting because at least for the two of us, we're getting married in September. And so,
Congratulations.
oh, thank you. This is, the ultimate test for the two of us. And also a big test for me because so much of what I love about performing is I love doing my work on my own and really, getting into a piece, but that's only 50% of it. And the other 50% is actually performing it and connecting with audiences and having that interactive aspect. And now that the at least normal, quote quote normal aspect of that is removed from the equation. So I've been trying to get creative with how to still reach people while getting, past like playing for my iPhone or my computer screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So it's been I'll just say interesting.
That's a good word, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, when this is all over, I know it will, some good somehow will come from it. I know that down the line. And so just in the moment, I'm trying to, stay as positive as possible and do everything I can to help out my, groups that I love working for and colleagues that I know are in the same position as me, and just trying to keep in touch with family and
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
feeling that's the best we can do.
we all just shine our light however we can right now, I think. If we all do that, we're going to get through this for sure.
Yes.
I'd love to touch more on this topic a little bit later, but I want to switch gears and talk a little bit more about your journey into the world of early music, because it's always interesting how people arrive to it. So when did you first discover early music, and what about it inspired you to become a musician?
I started early music when I was an undergrad at Oberlin Conservatory. It's where a lot of us in the field start out. I studied with Marilyn McDonald, and I know she taught the beginner Baroque class. And I actually remember before I went to college, oh, we got cat action around.
Oh, no worries.
And before I went to college, I was very into orchestral playing. I didn't really know anything about historical performance. I actually attended a concert on period instruments of Vivaldi Four Seasons while I was on a trip in Europe, and I hated it. And then it took some easing in. And even when I took Marilyn's beginner Baroque class my second year at Oberlin, it was really a struggle for me to get into it. I mostly took the class to, one, round out myself a little bit better, and two, I had, oh, hello. I don't know if you can hear him. Yeah, and I never really was able to connect with a lot of the earlier repertoire that I was playing, especially Bach, which at that time, most modern violinists, most of the Baroque stuff they're playing is Bach, and I thought it would help. And Yeah, so I started and I could not hold the instrument. I have perfect pitch that hadn't settled. Now it is movable, which is very interesting. But before then, the sound coming out of the instrument at A415 is not what I would hear in my head looking at the page at A440, and it was a whole mess. And it took playing in Baroque orchestra for me to really start connecting with early music, because in modern orchestra, it depends on the school and how invested people are in. But during my time in conservatory, everybody shows up to orchestra dragging their feet and nobody's looking up. Everybody, is just trying to get through the 2.5 hours of rehearsal. And I loved the repertoire, but just there was something missing for me in the big orchestral setting at that time. And then I got into Baroque orchestra, and it was a smaller group and we were all still learning. So it was very active. People were looking up because they had to, so they could watch the leader. And then, you're looking up and looking at your fellow musicians, and, you're like, oh, this is fun, and there's that, I don't know what a good word for it is. I want to say awakeness, but
Sure.
Yes.
A presence.
Yeah, that's it. A presence.
Yeah.
And especially with the repertoire, for the simpler repertoire, you need to be extra invested to make it convincing. And even for the complicated repertoire, there's some, more obscure Baroque repertoire that you want to convey to people in a way that will make them like it. That's the right way of saying it, because it's all still so new in the grand scheme of the musical canon. I feel like early music is still new, which is, I know it's kind of an oxymoron, but that's really when it clicked. We were playing a bunch of Corelli and Mufa, and I just said, this is the best. I want to be in Baroque orchestra as often as I can. And even through my first master's, which I did at Rice University, which was for modern violin, because I knew I still had to get better technically, and just still work on some modern approaches. I kept up with Baroque, and I found a teacher where I could, each week to week bring in a modern piece or bring in a Baroque piece, and we could, just switch. And the techniques are different, but they definitely inform each other. So it was actually very helpful for me to do that. And then at the end of that, I knew the time was right to do the Juilliard program, to kind of get folded in back on the East Coast, because I grew up in New Jersey, and I've always wanted to live in New York. So I figured that was the right path to take. And it's worked out pretty well. People still get amazed / confused when they find out that I haven't touched a modern violin in, a few years, and I'm still making a nice living and a full calendar. And I was like, you can do it. It's possible.
You can live the dream. Absolutely.
The dream, the Baroque dream.
That's wonderful. So what has been the most challenging part of this path for you, and what has been the most exhilarating part of it?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think the challenges were just teaching myself to go with the flow of all this, because I mean, in my circle, I know a bunch of Baroque musicians who are, quote, doing this, but it's still not a typical path.
Okay.
The path of one being a freelancer and then two being a Baroque freelancer. Some people still scratch their heads. So along the way, I had to teach myself to go with the flow, but also, keep reminding myself that that all the hard work and struggles along the way would be worth it because it's really what I wanted to do.
Right.
I kept, hearing from other people and not listening to them, but also, checking in with myself, like, you want to do what you love, but also does it make sense? Will it pay off? Because that's just, how life is. But I just kind of kept going with it and kept working as hard as I could and taking every opportunity as I could, even though, I had to make lots of sacrifices in, social life, being able to see, visit family and friends, having to miss out on a lot of stuff for the sake of the work.
Sure.
And it's definitely paid off. I'm very happy that I did it. And I'm happy that now, I can take the time for my personal life, away from the work life. But that, I would say the hard, brute force of having to work so much was challenging. But it's been very exhilarating to do something that not many people do. Especially with the solo work I've been getting to do. I never in, a million years would have thought that I'd be getting to play the repertoire that I have on Get Strings, especially, and it's another one of those just saying yes and rolling with the punches thing. Like last season, I had a week to learn Beethoven Concerto on Gut Strings. And I had played it on modern violin, but, do the swap over to performing it on Gut Strings with a huge orchestra and just, do it. And it was terrifying. I barely remember it, but I remember that people clapped at the end. So I think it was good. So just the opportunities that I've planned for and the ones that I haven't planned for have just been so exciting. And I've always loved performing since I was younger, even when I didn't think that this was going to be what I would end up doing. I still just love, being on stage and being able to make people smile. It sounds very simple, but it's just very nice. You're playing something you love, you're doing something you love, and you look out and you see that people love it as well. It's just very rewarding.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, it's a gift for all of us. There's no question about it. And I think it goes both ways, it's that energy exchange of something that's coming from your heart and soul, and then something that we're also offering to an appreciation of that gift you're sharing. So that's
literally how I feel it. I'm very much a energy. I call myself an energy witch. I feed off of that energy, and that's why I think being a performer is the perfect job for me, because you give so much and you get so much from the audience. It's definitely a 50-50 relationship, contrary to what some people might think about it.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you in sisterhood as an energy witch. So there are a lot of schools of thought about what early music actually is. How would you define it, and how does it differ from traditional classical music? I know it's kind of a loaded question.
It's hard to say it, so succinctly. Okay, well, at like base level, I would say that early music is performing music of a certain time period on the equipment that the musicians in that time period would have played on.
Okay.
Yes. I was like, I think it's as close as I can make it. And it differs from, regular classical, modern, whatever you want to call it, performance, because you're also using the techniques, or what we know of the techniques they would have used, and the language, the musical language that they would have been speaking at the time, which is different from what has become universal today.
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of musicians. And so that's why I say early music is new. That's
Right.
Yeah, that's always what I come back to, because it's it's been very recent that so much information has become available to us with the writings, the treatises, as well as the scores. I mean, I feel very lucky that I, got into early music when I did, with the, all of the technology that has made access so easy to these
Mm-hmm.
things. And I know that, teachers of mine, they were the pioneers. They were sorting through library books and just kind of camped out in just with, piles and piles of literature. And I like doing that. I like doing that as well, but it is also I think it's very good because it makes it even more accessible to people who are interested in it, might not be doing it professionally, but just want to know. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I get a lot of messages from just people all over the world who are curious about it, and they're, where do I start, or how did you know how to do this? And you can just,
Right.
yeah, take the treatise or take the piece and say, oh, well, if you look here, it's blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very cool. I like that about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, what role does music play in our world and community, and how has the pandemic brought attention to the importance of the role it serves?
Oh man, that's another big question. Well, what I love about music is that it brings people together in a way that not many other things can. The arts have this ability to, breach all the gaps between people, and which is why I get so happy and inspired when I get a message from somebody in, I'm Iranian, so I get a lot of messages from people in Iran, even though I don't speak the language, but you know, plenty of messages of, oh, I love Vivaldi so much. I love Vivaldi too. Or yeah, just, oh, early music. I didn't know much about early music, but I found your video and it's so interesting how this, and this, it's a very personal and interpersonal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that with the absence of the arts, there has been this huge, or at least there was until we started filling it.
Right.
This huge gap, just, and for lack of a better word, just this silence, because so many forms of art affect us in ways that we don't even realize.
Mm-hmm.
Music, film, art, visual art, it's this ever-present entity around us, and you don't realize what's missing until you don't have it.
Yes.
That's what I think. People who might not be into classical music or are only into a certain type of music, and they say, oh, I'm not really into music,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm not really into art, or I'm not really into, yeah, this or that. But there's always going to be something that, oh, I like that.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm expressing myself like 100%, but that's how I feel about it. Just, it's this,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I know where you're going with this. Certainly, I think you have expressed yourself really well. I think it's an undercurrent that people don't realize operates in their lives daily
Yeah.
until something dramatic happens to it that upsets that balance. And then all of a sudden, there's an awareness of actually, wow, I didn't realize it came into my life that way.
Yes.
I think I think it's an opportunity, for people to really be mindful about that and see how it does enrich their lives in ways that they just may not have had on the radar. And
Yes, for sure.
this has brought it forward. So absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I've always known that I'm an energy witch, but especially now,
Yeah.
I I've realized how kind of exhausting it can be I've been doing a lot of live stream sessions and
Mhm.
outreach sessions, and there hasn't quite been as much interaction as I would like. So in the
Yeah.
coming weeks, I'm trying to spin it to have more interaction because I'm realizing how much more tired I get,
Oh, sure.
yeah, giving and giving and giving, and without the interactive,
The exchange,
yes,
right?
without the
Yeah.
energy exchange with the people watching, and even just being able to talk to people about it
Mhm.
and connect in that way has been very informative for me.
Yeah. So that kind of dovetails right into my next question. How do you see the presence of this virus in our world affecting the nature of live music performances in the future? And how do we keep the music alive in these times of crisis?
It's it's so hard to say because information changes every day, and depending on who you talk to, I have some organizations that I work for who haven't canceled into May yet, and then I got a cancellation for late June, and so it's hard to know. And for now, I think the switch to using the technology we have available to still make make our art accessible in whatever way we can is the best way. I know we're all just doing our best and trying things out. I'm definitely not a technology person.
I
I it's been very educational for me to be doing this, and I mean that's a skill that I can keep with me for the rest of my career. I'm hoping that live performances start up again, but it's hard to say what's going to happen. Is it going to are we going to go back to more Schubertian type situations to start with just a house concert, chamber music setting before we
Right.
jump right into concerts at Alice Tully again? Or yeah, I think the not knowing is the strangest part of all of this. And it seems like we're all just doing what we can to, yeah, keep the music alive during
Mhm.
this time.
Absolutely. I think the one advantage that early music has, and I've kind of gleaned this from talking to other artists, is that, it is a more intimate art form anyway. It doesn't tend to have large crowds. So we probably will be the first, music organization able to kind of resume normal operations or somewhat, reduced maybe, but
Mhm.
it's a more intimate setting that doesn't involve huge crowds of people. We may be able to work with that.
That's
Uh,
true. Yeah.
yeah, so we sort of have been keeping that in mind when we think about what this might look like. So it'll be really interesting to see how it all unfolds, but it is a total day by day thing for sure. But we're all in it together and we're going to figure it out. I have no doubt.
Exactly.
Arts are so amazingly flexible that way and innovative and creative. I mean, so if anybody can get through this, anyone in the arts can.
Yes, exactly.
So, what are you looking forward to the most when we get on the other side of this crisis and all of the social distancing we're having to do? And, other than coming to perform with us, that is.
Yes. I was like, it's a test. Okay, well, I'll do two answers. I'll do a just life answer and then a musical answer because,
Perfect.
well, most of all, I'm just very excited for my future hypothetical wedding in September.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, I really hope I hope that things are settled by then, if only just to be able to be with my family and my friends again. I haven't seen them in so long, in person. And so I think that would just be the perfect conclusion to such a crazy time, is being able to get together and just celebrate such a beautiful day and celebrate love. And it sounds,
Absolutely.
it sounds cheesy, but
No, not at all.
yeah.
I think
Uh,
it's beautiful.
yeah, Jared and I are very excited. And
Oh,
musically, it's a similar situation. Musically, I'm just excited for whatever the first project that I get to play in person is,
mm-hmm.
because I mean, I'm not a very outwardly emotional person, and neither are a lot of my friends, but I feel like when we finally all get together and start playing, it's going to be a little, some sniffles,
Absolutely.
some
Yeah.
sniffles going on, because there's, especially with early music, nothing like playing with the band, because everyone is just as involved and all the parts are important. It's, there's no one, like, it's puzzle pieces. It's not just one block, and
Right,
everything fits
absolutely.
together.
Yeah, there's no separation. You're all united in
Yes.
what you're doing, especially with early music, which just is so, it has that beautiful intimate synergy anyway. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's wonderful. Well, we're going to just keep those visions in mind for sure.
Yes.
So my final question is, what piece of music do you personally turn to when you just need inspiration and comfort?
It's usually, yeah, I would say it's Beethoven Violin Concerto.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a piece that I've loved since I was younger, and I've worked on it, several times so far in my career, and it's just, it speaks to me in some special way. So even during my warm-ups, if I'm playing Baroque or, classical or whatever, I use it to center myself. It's
Mm-hmm.
just turned into my, the song of my people.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yes.
that's great. Well, we'll be sure to pass that on to people who are needing that right now for sure.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. This has been absolutely delightful, and we're so looking forward to seeing you next season and having you come visit us in Seattle. And just wish you all the best with everything and your wedding. And I'm sure it's going to just be beautiful. And
Oh, thank you.
stay well.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay.